shifted towards that, but God has His own plans. I qualified SSB interview, that is 5-day interview, but got disqualified in medical for the Indian Navy. And then and there's it gave me a major boost up that I can qualify for civil services as well. तो सर उससे पहले तो बहुत डर लगता था कि देश की इतनी कठिन एग्जाम है, कैसे होगा, क्या करना होगा, पर जब मेरा एसएसपी निकला सर, दैट वाज मेजर टर्निंग पॉइंट, and it gave me confidence that if I can qualify SSB, then I can qualify even civil services. और मैंने तैयारी की सर, और मैंने पहले प्रयास में सफल हुआ. तो ये सर बेसिक ब्रॉड आउटलाइन रहा.
ग्रेट स्टोरी. क्या बात है. मतलब वाकई आप लोग आप काबिल तारीफ हैं और आपको तो सल्यूट करना चाहिए मुकुंद भाई. और आप जैसे लोग, आपकी जब पृष्ठभूमि से जब लोग आएंगे और भारत सरकार में जुड़ेंगे, सरकारी तंत्र से जुड़ेंगे, तो मुझे लगता है कहीं ना कहीं जरूर हमारे देश का कहीं भला होगा. बट ऐश्वर्या, फाइनल क्वेश्चन देन टू यू. ऐश्वर्या, इट्स इंटरेस्टिंग, you're a city person and Mukund comes from the rural parts of India, and both of you, one rank away from each other, both of you now going to be in the IS. Tell me, which is a specific area, one sector which you believe that if you focus on, you could really bring about a huge difference?
I think one specific sector which I would like to focus on would be education, especially women education. As they say, if you educate a woman, you educate the entire nation. So if women are empowered, then it's possible to bring a real change. So I think issues related to women, especially because my home state is Rajasthan. I was born in Haryana. So these issues are very close to my heart, and I feel that if I can contribute to the ongoing Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign and implement the policies in the best way possible, I think that would be my first priority in the years to come.
All right. Well, I wish both of you well, and I'm sure that once you all are done with your training, and once you officially become a part of the big process of Indian government, who knows, you and I may run into each other somewhere. But my best wishes to both of you. Stay well, stay safe, and continue with this noble cause of nation building. Thank you so much. Right, let's move on to the third story now. From the story of bureaucracy to a story which has actually been shared with us by a loyal viewer of India Ahead from Bengaluru. And this, I think, should shock those very bureaucrats. The Aishwarya and Mukund who you just met, and you saw their stories, they're new to this business. But look at what sometimes bureaucracy either ignores or what bureaucracy just fails to do. What does it fail to achieve? These pictures that you're seeing have been shared with us on our Twitter page, and I'm requesting all of you, wherever you are, in Bengaluru or in any other part of the country, if you share your stories with us, we will be able to bring about some difference, some impact. You know what this story is all about? This is a story where a barricade was put up. A steel concrete structure has now come up in Indiranagar in Bengaluru. Bang in the heart of Bengaluru. Why? Because in this area, the place where this structure has been put up, this place had a few people who had tested COVID positive. Now here is a Prime Minister who says, please wear masks and let us not miss the wood for the trees, and let us ensure that we can win this battle against corona pandemic and see what's going on. If authorities are not in a position to deal with this kind of a scenario, if this is not social ostracization, I don't know what is. I mean, are we in for a scenario where with 2 million cases now being recorded in India, just imagine if those 2 million cases which were being recorded, if you had these steel structures which were coming up in many of those localities. I've put up on Twitter, I want a lot of you are tweeting, and a lot of you are saying that what a shocking thing it is. Some of you are saying that this has happened in Maharashtra, this has happened in other parts of Karnataka. Well, I'm appealing to all of you. Certainly in the state of Karnataka, certainly in Bengaluru. I'm just wondering exactly what's going on. How is it that in a top metro like Bengaluru, you have this scenario and absolutely no one bats an eyelid? And this story was shared to us. I mean, I can point out, I can put that tweet up as well. This was shared with us by someone who called me and then told me that, look, this is what's going on and this is bizarre. But what is even more bizarre to me is that people are now commenting on this tweet, which was put up, and telling us that what is wrong. It's Keshav Prakash, for instance, is saying that it's bizarre if all this is going on and people are not talking about this. There are many others who are now tweeting and who are going on saying that look, if we don't do this, then how are we going to protect ourselves? I want to know, is this the way to protect yourself? I want to know is humiliating someone the way forward for you to protect yourself? Now, I got a caller who I understand is a resident of Indiranagar. I'm not giving the name or identity of that individual. But do go ahead, sir. Are you a resident of Indiranagar? Is that how you got hold of these pictures?
Is it me? Hello?
Yes, it's you, sir.
Yeah. So basically,
yes, I'm asking you, are you a resident of Indiranagar? And how did you get hold of these pictures?
No, I saw this picture. I'm exactly not of Indiranagar, but this is not across Indiranagar, but this is all across Bangalore. It's not to one particular place. It is all across Bangalore. And there are some people who either put up barricades, they put up grills, they put this all across. And it's not only, they would block even an arterial road, and senior citizens, children are blocked. They cannot move, they cannot take their vehicles. And it's sort of ostracizing people apart from inconveniencing them.
So you're saying that this putting up of barricade is not just because on my Twitter timeline, the story which was given to me was that these pictures were coming from Indiranagar. You're telling me that this is not just restricted to Indiranagar, this is all over Bengaluru?
Yes, I will show you that if you go to Baswantgudi, if you go to Atinagar, if you go to Bangalore, has got residential areas, and you can walk across these places and you could see these barricades there. So if there is a house which has been affected, you will find both sides of the road blocked, or you will find access blocked. I don't know for what reason. Some people, maybe there are no houses even, but you will blocked like this for quite some time. You will find street poles put across.
But have any one of you, tell me if you're a citizen, sir, and I'm not asking you to tell me where exactly you stay. I don't want to reveal your identity or anything.
Yeah.
When you saw what was going on, did you think in terms of bringing this to the notice of the authorities there?
I in fact tweeted to my earlier tweet was talking about this, and even during an unlocked situation, I had put this across. I think the police also was marked in this, where I asked, what is the logic of blocking roads like this? It could be an ambulance which has to go. It could be someone who has to go in the dead of night or in the morning, or have a medical emergency. Who will unblock this road? Or why is that you have to move all around a particular area, finding an exit out of this place? So yes, this has been brought earlier. I think I don't know when the first unlock started. Around about that time, I can't be specific, but maybe I think it's more than a month or so.
Right. But I'm at a loss here. I'm just trying to think that if this was going on in broad daylight, and I'm looking at some tweets, Asim Arora is saying that he wants such structures in his society for an arrogant and an idiot family who had many positive ones. They were roaming around and they were not being quarantined. Nikhil Bhandari is saying that this is happening in Maharashtra as well. Are you saying that the authorities, even when they come across these cases, the authorities don't act? They don't remove these illegal structures?
No response. I'm telling you, I put up a tweet. A tweet was put up saying that this is happening. I cited areas which are there. You go across certain places. You could see this in broad daylight. What are we talking about? It's not about you bringing up to the authorities, but authorities also need to proactively see what's happening in areas of Bangalore. You can't have people taking control and doing what they feel is right. Isn't there a sort of system that you have to go with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is bizarre. If the chief minister or the municipal commissioner of Bengaluru is watching this program, I'm hoping that these structures will be removed as early as they can, maybe before we end this program, because this is a straightforward infringement of someone's privacy. This is not just infringement on your privacy. This is also an invasion in your right to live the way you wish to live. It's not a crime to be corona positive. You must, of course, take precautions. And if you have tested positive, you must be home quarantined. You should not be violating that quarantine. But in a state where the chief minister himself has said that there is no way that I'm extending lockdown for these kind of self-imposed lockdowns, self-created lockdowns, because this is nothing else but a lockdown. This is nothing else but an attempt being made by the local citizens of this area in Indiranagar, and from what the caller is telling us in many other parts of Bengaluru, this is social ostracization, this is humiliation of people who've tested corona positive. So if you actually want to correct the wrong, if you wish to change things the way they are unfolding, if you see events like these, if you see pictures like these, please tweet them to me directly, tweet them to India Ahead, and we'll pick these stories up and we'll join you in your fight and ensure that there is some kind of an impact which takes place. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us and helping and sharing the story with us. Once again, an earnest appeal to all of you. This experiment that we have unveiled on India Ahead can succeed only and only if you become a part of this experiment. If you let us know exactly what is the story which is developing, what is the latest information that you're picking up, we'll be able to do justice to those stories. Let's move on then from the story of Karnataka in Bengaluru to another top metro, the national capital of our country, and another shocking story which is unfolding in the national capital. The horrible, brutal rape of a 12-year-old innocent girl. Just imagine, over the last 7-8 years, right since the Nirbhaya incident happened in Delhi, there have been changes to the law. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, has spoken about capital punishment to everyone. But has it really changed the situation? From capital punishment to the culprits, life imprisonment to culprits, to ensuring that there is speedier justice which is given to survivors, somewhere we've just not managed to instill the fear of God on the minds of these horrible people who indulge in this absolutely atrocious crime. A 33-year-old is a person who was a suspect. What does he do? He burgles. He enters inside the house of a young innocent person in West Delhi. 12-year-old victim screams on seeing the suspect. But what does the suspect do? He's obviously not holding back. He attacks the victim with a pair of scissors. Victim has sustained major injuries on her face and her head. The suspect then allegedly sexually assaults the survivor. 2 days later, Delhi police arrests this suspect, and the minor survivor is now admitted in AIIMS. Delhi Chief Minister has tweeted, and he's talking about how his heart is absolutely broken and how he hopes that justice will be delivered. Our phone lines are open, our Skype lines are open. I want to hear from you, the viewer, because unless we create some sound, folks, unless we create some pressure, things are not going to change. So on People's Editor, that's what we do. We give you, the viewer, the right to express yourself. We give you, the viewer, the authority. The power is with you, folks. It's not just the television remote that I'm talking about. The power to express yourself clearly, freely, the power to demand accountability from the political ecosystem is also only and only with you, provided you use that power. If you don't want to use that power, if you want to be titillated, if you want to be obsessively told about what is going on in the life of a film star who unfortunately is no more, then do bear in mind the loss. I remind you repeatedly, the loss is only and only yours. Sanjana John is a fashion designer. She's with us. Yogita Bayana works very closely with many women, with many rape survivors. And RJ Tarun is from Radio 1. We'll be joined by a whole host of other guests as well. Ishleen Kaur is a blogger, influencer. She's joining us live from Melbourne. Sanjana, first to you. Is there anything, Sanjana, is there anything which can be done to instill the fear of God, the fear of law on the minds of such such people who I think they can't be described as human beings. What should be done, Sanjana? Because obviously strengthening the law, making the law more stringent doesn't appear to be working on the ground.
Yes, absolutely. We can definitely want that. I always say can implement it and people are being, framework, of that. Yes, we can take law and order and it is our politicians. Unfortunately, it is happening across India, but when it comes to Delhi, I saw very analytical kind of a thing. When we protested at the time the Congress was in power, and Aam Aadmi Party definitely also protested. Then Gudiya case happened, Network case happened. The first thing was happening yesterday was also protesting Aam Aadmi power, Aam Aadmi Party is in power. So, I mean, everything, this attitude, they know how to work. They just protest against each other. Nobody wants to work. The parties that talk to work. Aam Aadmi Party came over the power, on the basis of safety time, but nothing seems to be working. The reason, because it's too upset, it is one that's focused and not one solution, multiple solutions available. It's just a complex issue. So you need to address it like that. You can't say come out with one solution, definitely not. But for that, you need to have some kind of a push that willpower, that passion to kind of address this issue, which seems to be missing from the government. As an activist, I can clearly say that I don't see any government being very serious about this issue. They are just, making the political thing, but it has to be really taken up very specifically, very passionately, but kind of do deliberations. We have solutions. I've been citing to them, not only me.
No, but that's what I'm trying to understand. No, but what can be a solution? Yogita, what could be a solution? Sanjana is back with us. Sanjana, it beats me. I can't think of any solution because it appears that there is a certain class of men, there is a certain class of friends, they can be criminal minded, whoever. They just believe that it is in their hands to abuse a woman and simply get away with it. Now, these things keep happening, Sanjana. Is it just a mental social problem which just can't be cured just by strengthening the law?
Well, I'm sure that we are seeing that over the years, the crime rate, the amount of violence against women, it's going up. It's only increasing. A lot of it is copycat. And I think we have seen, especially with children, the crime rate against children has been going up. And I've spoken about this, that the main reason is the internet. And we need to definitely have some kind of curbing on what is put out on the internet, because people have access to the internet and what they are watching is something that inspires and instigates them to commit a lot of these crimes. Secondly, of course, even though the laws are strong enough, the implementation of the laws has to be stronger. We have been seeing cases where it has been immediate, and going forward, I think the mentality, the mindset, it is so morbid. It's just unbelievable that they could actually resort to this kind of violence, especially with children. I think we need to understand that the cases that are going up, there has to be a severe and immediate action, stringent action that's taken against the people. The children have to be protected. The police, the cops have to actually step up on whatever protection. That's the only way that women can be safe. Otherwise, this is not ending. It's only going worse. Getting worse.
So much has been spoken about in our country about how there is a lack of number of police personnel, or the kind of ratio proportion that you need to have between a police personnel, the police force and citizens is vastly skewed. So I'm just wondering that is there anything which can ever be done to change the scenario? We're going to look at the statistics. One rape still being reported every 16 minutes. Rape victims aged between 12 to 16 is 10.6%. Now that's a huge one. Ishleen Kaur is there as well. Ishleen, let me toss it to you, Ishleen. You're there in Melbourne. Tell me, why is it that there is a sense that the life of a woman the authority with which some people in India appear to be committing these crimes, the ease with which they commit these crimes, it smacks of this sentiment that they can get away with it. They can commit this crime and they can get away with it. It doesn't happen in Melbourne. It doesn't happen in the US. Why is that? Why is there this feeling that in India you can get away by committing a crime against a woman, Ishli?
I personally believe that, the main issue lies here. Don't understand how it is so easy for, men to perpetrate such violence, such morbid violence on women, children, disabled people and elderly people all alike. And, it's just, it just baffles me that after the Nirbhaya case, the laws were supposed to be getting stricter for, people who are committing such crimes, but nothing of such intensity sort of happened in India, I believe. Like I was living in India the last year, so it's not like I'm a Melbourne person. I have seen India, I've seen Delhi. I've lived there for like 25 years of my life. So I have seen it. I've seen the fearlessness of men, and it really baffles me because I do not understand why. Like, men just feel like they're free to do anything they want. And it's mostly because the society sees the honor of a woman, honor of their family in a woman's vagina, which is really disturbing to me. And I honestly do not understand how men can.
Abha Singh ji will be joining us, a well-known advocate and activist. Hope to be joined by Swati Maliwal in a short while from now. She's the chairperson of Delhi Commission for Women. And Dr. Ajay Kumar, spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, will be live with us as well. So as I just wait for Abha ji and other guests to join us, Tarun, if you're there, Tarun. Now, we were just focusing on the story which had broken from Kerala, but just to come back to you, Tarun, the story of just how bad the scenario is when it comes to justice being done for rape survivors. In course of your radio shows, in course of your various columns that you all do, is there a sense that women in the national capital still don't feel safe adequately?
They don't, and I come from the city of Pune, which is considered to be one of the safest cities. But there is still a sense that, okay, after dark, you don't have to go out. I think the major problem here is, and if we are looking for a solution, the solution is that we're not setting the right examples, Bhupendra. If you see all the past cases and the way that we've dealt with them, it takes years and years for it to, come to a conclusion, and people think that they can get scot-free from something like this. If we set the right examples, that if you do something so heinous, you will be put to justice, and it will happen very quickly, very swiftly. If all the machinery that we have, we put it to good use so that it can be, the justice can be served very quickly in a swift manner. I think that will be setting a right example. And if we do it for some time, there's so many cases. I mean, you were saying this on the show that there's a case that's been reported every minute. So if we just do justice to all these cases and we do it in time, I think people will think 100 times before even, going that route.
But I was speaking to Sanjana also on this. What is it that can scare people? Because ultimately these kind of crimes will stop, Tarun, only and only if people believe that if I commit this crime, I'll struggle to beat the law enforcement agencies. How do you get yourself to that situation?
I believe we have the right set of rules, and our constitution has done all the necessary arrangements to deal with all these things. It's just that the enforcement is not quick enough. It's not right. It's the way that our machinery does all these things that they're supposed to do. They don't do it proactively. They don't go after all these perpetrators right then. They, we all wish for a world where there'll be a day when all these people will think that this is morally wrong and they should not do it. But it's a long way to that place. So in the meantime, all we have to do is to just make the enforcement so good and so fast that the people know that, okay, I cannot get away from, by doing something like this. And this is not acceptable to the society, and especially to the police and all the machinery, that is responsible to get these people behind bars and serve justice.
How do you ensure? You say that you can think in terms of maybe increasing the pace of let's say the judicial mechanism. And Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, has gone to the extent of demanding capital punishment against anyone who is convicted of rape. I think nothing has worked. Nothing has worked. If nothing has worked, then I wonder what's going to work. Swati Maliwal is live with us. Let's straight away go to her. Swati ji, the unfortunate reality, Swati ji, is this: that each year, at regular intervals, people outrage. All of us outrage about what goes on in a particular case, and then we come back and we keep outraging about another case as well. Why is it, Swati ji, that the law of the land is still insufficient to deter individuals from committing such crimes?
I think the law of the land is very strong. Right now, the law of the land says that if a girl or if a child actually is raped, then the rapist will be given the death penalty within 6 months. I think this is the strongest law that we can have.
Right.
The unfortunate part of the entire scenario is that despite having such a strong law, it is not being implemented. If you look at the police resources, they are really scarce. If you look at the accountability of the police, that is non-existent. And if you see the fast-track courts, they are hardly there. Last year, I sat on a hunger strike. After my hunger strike, I kept a hunger strike for 10 days. And after my hunger strike, on the 10th day of the hunger strike, this law was passed, which said that now rapists of children will be given the death penalty. I had to sit on another hunger strike which lasted for 13 days because I wanted this law to be implemented. Why is it that police resources are just not being provided? Delhi police is 66,000 police personnel short for the past 13 years. Go down on any of the police station anywhere across the capital and you will see that each and every police station is functioning at half its sanctioned strength. If you look at the fast track courts, hardly any fast track courts are there. During the last hunger strike that I did, the government of India announced that 1,000 fast-track courts will be set up now across the country. Yet, they are yet to be set up. Even Delhi is very short on these fast-track courts. So the truth is this, that once some men rape a girl, and then after that, the entire system starts raping her. I think that is what needs to change. And I totally agree with the gentleman who was speaking before me. I think that what is required is a strong deterrence. We need certainty and swiftness of punishment. If we have that, if the criminal is assured of the fact that if he does something wrong, he will be not spared by the system under all circumstances. He will be given the strongest punishment within a time-bound manner. I think that is what is going to create deterrence, and that is completely lacking right now.
If the problem is just this, that you have this big police force and there is this constant conflict between the Delhi police not reporting to the Delhi government but to the central government, do you think one of the reasons why Delhi ended up becoming the rape capital and it's easy for people to get away with these crimes is because you still don't have the policing part sorted out? It's not as if crimes don't happen in other parts. In UP, for instance, or in Madhya Pradesh or elsewhere, crimes against women keep happening with same impunity. Is it just that, Swati ji?
It's not just that, but I think that also plays a very, very huge role. So how is it that a woman who has been affected, who has been raped or who has been victimized in any manner, how is it that she will reach out to the Home Minister of this country? Because the Delhi police reports to the Home Minister of the country. So obviously the Home Minister of the country has several other very, very important issues on his mind. How is it that he will deal with the rape of a girl in Delhi? It is very difficult. So why is it that the Delhi police has to report to the center? The Delhi police must definitely report to the Delhi government. That is the sensible thing, that is the logical thing. But those are the issues of politics, and unfortunately that is not really working out. And if you look at the situation across the country, why are rapes happening in UP? Why are rapes happening across the country?
Swati ji, if you're the chairperson of Delhi Commission for Women, specifically in the context of Delhi, Swati ji, can you tell me 2 steps which you think really need to be implemented to ensure that women across the streets of Delhi can feel safe?
I think the first and foremost step is that the Delhi police should come under the elected Delhi government. I think a woman will find it much more easier to approach her chief minister than she will find it to approach the Home Minister of this country. I think the Delhi Commission for Women also finds it difficult to approach the center. So I can imagine the plight of women who are coming to us, and every day at least 6 girls are being raped in the capital. So I think first and foremost that needs to be done. But more importantly, the resources of the police across the country as well as in the capital need to be strengthened. Why is it that only 50% of the police force exists on the ground? Why is it that the police force that even exists on the ground is at maximum times looking after VIP duties? So if you do that, how do you look after the people of this country? So I think police resources need to be strengthened, police accountability needs to be set. Even in this case of this 12-year-old girl, 2 days it has taken for Delhi police to arrest, and that too they did after the Delhi Commission for Women intervened and issued summons to the Delhi Commissioner, the DCP of the particular district. So I think if the accountability of police is not set, how do you make sure that women and girls will get justice? Even as of now, when I'm talking right now, we are seeing that the Delhi police has a very, very soft stand towards the criminal, because again and again they're going on saying that the rape has not happened. It's an assault, but it is not a rape. This girl, she has sustained not just fractures on her head, she has sustained such untold miseries and such pain and such injuries on her private parts that I cannot even describe it. Her entire private parts, they've been ruptured, her intestines have been ruptured, and Delhi police still is claiming that maybe this is not rape. I think this is completely bizarre, and that is why we've issued summons to the Delhi DCP of the Delhi police. And so like I said, accountability of the police, resources of the police, as well as the fast track courts. Today, I remember two years back, or probably, actually more than 2 years back, 2.5 years back, an 8-month-old baby was raped in the capital. We fought for her, we struggled, she had to be operated thrice. The Delhi Commission for Women has supported her all throughout this journey. But even today, there has been no justice. So how is it that if you don't have these fast-track courts with a particular mandate of finishing these cases within 6 months, how is it that they will get justice? And if you don't give justice to these girls, what is the sense that you are trying to give in the people? You are trying to tell them that anything can happen. Even this man who has been arrested with this in this particular case, he had 2 murder cases on him. Why was he roaming around free? 2 murder cases, and then he inflicts such injuries on this girl, and then also Delhi police takes 2 days to arrest, and only because we raised our voice. So I think the entire system completely lacks accountability till the time we ensure certainty and swiftness of punishment. Nothing will change, and we will keep seeing these cases, and we will keep seeing the outrage, and then again and again the same cycle repeats itself.
All right, Swatiji, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, and here's hoping that we all can combine together and we can create some change, some impact on the ground. Thank you so much. If you're a woman and if you are somewhere out on the streets of the national capital or in many other parts of the country, if you feel unsafe, well, we feel for you. We hear you. We know that there is something seriously wrong. I just want to go back to the story of that plane crash which has taken place in Kerala, because there are more pictures which are coming in, and there is more information which is coming in as well. In Kerala, a plane which ended up skidding off the runway, and it has led to a scenario where the pilot has died in this unfortunate mishap. All kinds of public reactions now coming, political reactions coming in as well. The Chief Minister is taking note of all the latest developments. Maybe our producers can patch in both Ridhima as well as other reporters who are there on the ground. Maybe Dhanya Rajendran of the News Minute. Dhanya, are you there? Okay, we'll just try and get hold of Dhanya in a moment. The moment we get hold of her, we'll get more information. But it's unfortunate. The pictures which you're seeing now, latest coming in, is that some 24 ambulances have been rushed to the spot. The pilot who died, he's died because the plane ultimately ended up being broken into 2 parts. The cockpit of the aircraft ended up being broken into 2 parts, and therefore this unfortunate episode played out. The plane was landing at the time, when this Vande Bharat Express was landed. It was an Air India plane. Total of 184 passengers on board. There were 7 crew members as well. So in all, 191 people. The fuselage, which was there in 2 parts, that fuselage appears to have caught fire, and that is what perhaps led to the death of the pilot. It's rather unfortunate the way this entire incident has played out, and it just tells you that we can keep having these kind of mishaps. We can keep moving from one inquiry to the other, and ultimately nothing changes. This is the second time in Kerala that a plane has skidded off the runway. The only good news in this unfortunate mishap is that the passengers were evacuated safely. The passengers have not been impacted. So Ridhima is there. Let's speak to Ridhima. Ridhima, what else do you have for us?
Okay, Bhupen, let me put this into perspective for our viewers and let me give a timeline of what really has happened. Now, as we've been reporting on India here, that Kerala already has been seeing massive rainfall that we've been reporting all through the day. So this was a Boeing 737. This was a flight under the Vande Bharat repatriation flight that we've been seeing. The flight was from Dubai to Calicut. It was an Air India Express flight. Now, we've been told there were 191 total people, which is 184 passengers plus the crew members. There were 10 infants on board. The incident occurred around 7:40 in the evening, and about 24 to 25 ambulances and fire tenders were rushed to the airport. Now, what we're understanding is that the flight skid at the runway. This is expected because of the heavy rainfall that we've been seeing in Kerala. It fell off the table tier top for about 30 feet, and that's what led to it breaking into 2 parts, which obviously now has resulted in one of the pilots succumbing, which we got a confirmation from a tweet that KJ Alphonse has also put out. We've got no official word yet from the DGCA or the Aviation Ministry on the casualties. Other than that, we're understanding that all the other passengers have been now evacuated. So that's one thing. In terms of what is happening now, an emergency meet has now been called in the Aviation Ministry. There is also a probe that is now being ordered by the DGCA. The other aspect that we're picking up is that about 20 to 30 passengers are now said to be critical. They are first being treated. We do not have any clarity in terms of the casualties. The only casualty confirmation that we have is that one of the pilots has succumbed to his injuries. So as of now, there is a probe.
Ridhima, let me just hold you. We got Ridhima, just hold on for a moment, because Rickson is there on the phone line. Rickson is joining us on the phone line. Rickson, where was this flight coming, and any idea exactly what time did this unfortunate incident happen?
As you pointed out, that the Air India flight from Dubai to Kozhikode in Kerala just crashed at the Calicut International Airport, also, as the Keripur Airport. So it is unclear how many people actually there on board. But according to reports, several people have been injured in the incident. The injured have been now taken to hospitals near to the airport, which is in Malappuram district of Kerala. So actually, the incident happened around 7:40 p.m. The aircraft seems to have overshot the tabletop runway and plunged 30 feet down. So now, what we are picking from the sources is that 32 ambulances were already reached in the spot, and there were around 140 people on the flight, including the passengers and crew. Right now, the Chief Minister Bhupendra have requested the minister of the particular minister of that district to reach that particular spot and to coordinate the relief activities there. And according to the sources, that the flights are usually diverted to nearby airports if the weather is bad at the Keripur airport. And that today is a very bad weather and also very challenging situation here in the airport. More than 32 ambulances were reached in the spot, and still rescue operation is underway. And the people, the local authorities itself started the rescue operation first, and then the revenue officials and other senior officials reached the spot and coordinating the relief activities now.
All right. And any word from the Chief Minister, Rickson? Has he spoken to the local authorities there?
Exactly. Just now, Chief Minister Bhupendra has requested the minister of the particular district. He has given instruction to AC Moideen, the minister AC Moideen, to reach the airport and to coordinate the rescue operations there. And also, what we are picking now is that fire and rescue officials, senior officials, were also reached in the spot, and Chief Minister requested the health department also to coordinate in the Karipur airport. So as of now, they are saying that the situation is underway, but more than 140 passengers were there. What we are picking from the sources is that some of them health condition is very critical, so they were moved to the nearby hospital.
Right. So, and is it confirmed, Rickson? Is it confirmed that barring the pilot, everyone else has managed to escape this mishap?
As of now, that we are not getting, I'm not getting such reports, but the health condition of some passengers are very critical. That's why they have not taken to the medical college, but they immediately taken to the nearby hospital. So their health condition is very critical. That's what we are taking from the source. But some other reports are also coming. As of now, we can't confirm such reports. We are getting information from the fire and rescue officials that passengers, more than 13, 14 passengers, their health condition is very critical. That's why they were moved to the nearby hospitals.
Right. So the passengers have been moved to nearby hospitals. Any idea, Rickson, if there were any children on board this flight as well? Out of the 184 passengers, is there any word on the number of children, maybe the number of women?
Yeah, exactly. And some the fire and rescue officials were also released some video. In a video which I seen, that we can see a little girl. I think she is some 7 or 8-year-old girl, and they have taken the girl to child to hospital. And the fire and rescue officials is requesting the public to spread this video, whether so they can find their parents or their relatives over with her. So it's very clear that children were also there in this 140 passengers. That's why they released such a video right now. And also, that more locals were first reached in the spot, and they started the rescue operation. Now, all the ambulances, the district administration were requested, all the ambulances in the district to reach this particular spot. And after that, Chief Minister Bhupendra office were also intervened immediately after that, and he requested Minister AC Moideen to reach this particular spot, this Karipur airport. He was there in Thrissur, so he already started his journey, and within short 1 or 2 hours he will reach in this Karipur airport. And the health condition, the very big concern for the district administration, also for the state administration, is that there's some the health condition of some passengers is very critical.
Okay. Rickson, just hold on for a moment, because there's another voice. Kevin is on the phone line as well. Kevin, where are you, Kevin? Are you in Kozhikode? Are you in a position to confirm any other update that you may have picked up from this location?
So we have actually mobilized people around to the news came in just recently, so we're also trying to help out in whatever we can. And meanwhile, updates are all little limited now with the weather and heavy rainfall and all in Calicut. So that is what is happening here.
Are there citizens volunteers? Are there citizens volunteers, Kevin? Are there citizens? All right. Maybe Kevin is trying to help out some people. Kevin, are you there, or are you on another call?
Hello. Sorry.
Right. Okay, Kevin. We'll come back to you. Yeah, Kevin. No. I was just saying, Kevin, that you're telling us, Kevin, that you are mobilizing people and citizens, volunteers. So I just want to know exactly how many people are there right now who would have reached the airport. I mean, are you all going and maybe with food packets, with maybe with water bottles, just to help out people?
This happened 2 years back, and airport is also a little far from the heart of the city, so I don't really have a live update now. This thing very sketchy, and communications are all limited due to heavy rain and everything. Hello?
And is it still raining, Kevin? Is it still raining there? Is it still raining there,
It's
Kevin?
still raining in Kerala. It's still raining in Kerala today.
It's still raining in Kerala. All right. So it's still raining. It's still raining. Ridhima should be with us in a moment as well. Ridhima, are you there? Okay. Well, let's. Right, Rickson. Let me come back to you, Rickson, while we wait for our other reporters as well to fill us in terms of what's going on. Rickson, this is the second time in Kerala that something like this had happened. If I remember correctly, the last plane which had veered off the runway that episode had also played itself out in Calicut itself. What's the problem with the Calicut airport? What's the problem that these instances appear to be happening with rather dangerous regularity, I would say?
Yeah, as of now, we are getting some more breaking updates that 2 deaths were confirmed. 2 died in this crash. That's the latest that we are picking from the ground. 2 died. 2 deaths reported in this crash. And the operation is still on here in the Karipur airport. All the passengers are already moved to the hospital. Special control room already opened. The pilot succumbed. That's the latest update. The pilot also succumbed. Control room started in the Karipur airport. The pilot succumbed. 2 deaths are also confirmed in this crash. At the same time,
who's the second? Which is the second death, Rickson? Rickson, we do know that the pilot. So there's one pilot has died and 1 passenger has died?
Yes, 1 pilot, 1 passenger. That's the latest that we are getting from the ground. And also, special control room opened in Karipur airport. The senior officials are already reached the spot. District collector and all of our officials began.
All right. So the unfortunate reality is that another passenger has died, and both Rickson and Kevin were pointing out that in hospitals around this area, the passengers who've been injured, all these passengers are being taken to those hospitals. What a terrible evening it's turned out to be. Kerala, which is already suffering with floods, struggling with floods, that day ends with this plane crash being reported in Kozhikode. And to make things even worse, the pilot succumbing to his injuries, and now word is that a passenger has succumbed to the injuries which had been inflicted as well. Well, here's hoping that all the passengers who are now in hospital are being given due medical care, being given due medical attention, and one just hopes that there are no other untoward instances which are going to be reported. Kerala has had a rather difficult tryst with civil aviation, with flying. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, has already asked the National Disaster Relief Force to get into action and to think in terms of what can be done to provide relief to all the passengers who've been stuck. It must be an extremely horrible, terrible feeling. Firstly, you are flying in this Vande Bharat Express, so you're coming from Dubai, and you want to be back home. International travel is not allowed. You're thinking in terms of being quarantined. You're thinking in terms of how quickly can I get back to my family members. And then bang in the middle of this unfortunate fear, this kind of a tragedy strikes. These pictures, they tell you the story of just what may have been the impact, much like the last time where the plane had skidded off the runway and ended up crashing into the wall of the airport. Something similar appears to have happened here as well, because you can see that the plane literally crashed into the boundary wall of the Kozhikode airport. If it crashed into the boundary wall of the Kozhikode airport, then obviously the plane must have veered off. Rickson is still there. Rickson, tell us a bit about the central control center, the command center, which must have come into action there. Who's monitoring that command center right now, Rickson?
Some more latest update that we are getting. 20 passengers were moved to in the relief hospital in Kondoti. That's also in Malappuram. And still heavy rain lashing here in the Karipur airport. So the rescue operation, they're facing a big challenge. The bad weather is still a big challenge here for the rescue operation. And 17 passengers were moved to Mercy Hospital. That also in Kondoti in Malappuram. 8 passengers were moved to MIMS Hospital. That was in Kozhikode. 8 passengers were moved to MIMS Hospital. That is in Kozhikode. And so as of now that all passengers were already moved to the hospital. So that's the latest that we are picking from the sources from the ground here. And also the department, the revenue the department has already released the passengers list also of the passengers. They released the passengers just now, and they are saying the situation is under control now. But the big concern still is the health condition of some passengers. So still heavy rain is lashing here, and also special control room were opened here in the Karipur airport. All the ambulances in the Malappuram district were already reached here, but
All right. Unfortunate. What's going on? We got another. Who's on the phone line right now? Rubina. Okay, Rubina is there. Ridhima? What else have you picked up? So now two deaths that are being reported. Pilot is dead. A passenger is dead as well. Anything else, Ridhima, that you're picking up? All right. Well, we'll try and go back to her later. The tragedy which has unfolded in Kerala is an unfortunate episode, and it's a story which I'm sure will be investigated very closely by the Director General of Civil Aviation. Already, the word is that DGCA has ordered a probe, and that probe hopefully will enable us to find some answers as to why is it that in a state like Kerala, these kind of instances appear to be happening. Why is it that flying? Why is it irresponsible nature? Is it just that the length of the runway is not fine? Why is it that if it's pouring heavily, if it was pouring heavily and if landing was not safe, then why was the plane allowed to land? Maybe the plane could have been diverted elsewhere. There are several questions which need to be answered. Hopefully the investigation which will be done will point us in that direction. We'll keep a close eye on all the developments which are coming from Kerala. But for the moment, let me toss it to Ridhima for our special segment on the internet freedom and exactly how does that impact your life and my life.
We ask, is the democracy of the internet under threat? Which way are we headed?
A wise man once said, "The internet is the oxygen we need in life today." But the internet is now fragmented like it never was. Each country has framed its own rules to govern cyberspace, some of which are hurdles today. Today, there's a need for global internet governance system, a system that has common standards and promotes a safe and diverse internet. The democracy of internet is under threat. Democracies need to sit down together and develop a common set of protocols, principles, rules that they will follow when it comes to internet governance and amend formulate laws. Let's look at what has recently happened with the ban on 59 apps. Is the Trump administration's attack on TikTok only motivated by the president's America First instincts? Even if it is, it raises an important question, a question of principles. Can cutting off market access to a foreign digital company be a legitimate act based on principle and policy preferences? Or is it just an act of protectionism? BAT companies or Baidu, Alibaba and Tencent are the holy trinity when it comes to soft power projects such as AI, IoT and fintech. 50% of the top downloads in India in 2018 were TikTok, UC Browser, ShareIt. All these apps had Chinese investments. Now that India has banned the mainstays of the Chinese app, who will make up the investment shortfall in the digital economy? Will American companies be incentivized to invest more at this time? What will this mean for security concerns linked to American apps like Facebook, for example, with what happened with Cambridge Analytica? The question now is, where are we headed? How do we create a rules-based system to balance security and investments.
To take this discussion forward, I have with me two very special guests joining me on the broadcast. I have Sarabjit Singh, who's the Director of Centre for Communication Governance, NLU Delhi, and also Santosh Pai, Partner, Link Legal. Gentlemen, good evening. Good to have you on India Ahead. And let's get straight to it then. This is our first episode where we kickstart many conversations around India's internet freedom. Sarabjit, I want to begin with you. I want to understand what is your take on it. Today we're talking about the democracy of the internet. If you look at the internet freedom, it's been touted as a fundamental right in the 21st century. But of course, it's not that simple, right? Today, there's so many questions around it. Is internet freedom a myth as governments, more and more governments today become increasingly inward-looking? Where do you stand on this?
And I think, as you said, the question is internet freedom under threat? My one-word answer would be that internet freedom is under threat, especially if we look, obviously, globally, whatever you have said. But even within India, there is greater censorship that's happening. There are more and more surveillance projects that the government is bringing up. There are questions of regulation of even video on demand services like Netflix or Hotstar. So I think what we have seen in the past few years is the government being more and more paternalistic. There's a proposal to regulate the intermediaries even more, and not just the Chinese thing, right? So one option is what they did with the 59 apps that happened a few weeks ago. There are questions of legality and stuff. So my simple answer to start with would be, I think internet freedom is under threat, and the internet we'll see more and more splinternet rather than one common global internet.
Yeah. Santosh, I want to take the same question to you for opening comments. Where do you stand? What do you feel about the democracy of the internet, a concept that many seem to have completely forgotten because it seems like an alien idea? Today, it's being attacked from various sides, domestic as well as on the international level. Democracy of the internet under threat today?
Well, India as the largest democracy should actually uphold the highest standards, and notions such as a ban of any particular app because it belongs to a particular country or is owned by certain people is certainly not the highest standard. Internet is often associated with freedom of expression, and that same freedom has brought a lot of benefits to people around. Has brought a lot of benefits around the world. So India, I think, should always constantly strive to uphold those principles without compromising in any manner on security of the country or sovereignty, as were the grounds mentioned in this recent ban. So whatever those concerns are, a proper regulatory framework must be framed, must be implemented. We were moving in that direction. A healthy debate was emerging. In fact, a lot of US companies were engaged in that debate with Indian regulators on the intermediary guidelines. While we haven't seen the latest implementation of the revised set of intermediary guidelines, we suddenly got this ban. So in the long term, I think, yes, these bans are not sustainable.
Yeah. I want to take on from what Santosh was saying, Sarabjit. And of course, the idea was for everybody to have their set of opinions. The idea was for it to be a freedom platform that generates freedom. But we're far from it. I mean, look at the conversations that we're having around the internet today. Do you then think more than the democracy, the idea of having a sense of equality about internet has completely been taken away from us? I mean, what do you feel? Would you feel that the internet today has democratized the world, or do you think it has now further actually gone down the opposite, which is it has widened the rift between the privileged and the less fortunate, and that is why probably we're discussing the idea around the democracy being under a threat today?
And I think that is something that seems to be happening. And if we see the projection that internet has taken, whereas in 2011 with the Arab Spring and all, we were saying that it will democratize the entire world, bring democracy to a lot of dictatorships. Two conversations now where we are saying internet is used for hate speech to interfere in elections. So in that sense, I think the slide of internet and the negativity, especially around social media, the kind of conversation that we have on social media is, I think, getting worse. However, as Santosh, I think, said, we should still remember that internet in that sense has still democratized and given a voice to a large number of people who without internet would have had no choice. Even today, I think we see a lot of campaigns happening online, a lot of transparency happening that is happening only because we have internet and we have relatively free and open internet compared to a lot of other countries. And that's why I think this ban on 59 apps, while there are legitimate security concerns, I think there are other ways to deal with it, right? If we look at the question of TikTok and if we look at stories, TikTok really provided, in that sense, a lot of benefits, a lot of employment to a lot of content creators. So I think, as Santosh mentioned, I think we need to find solutions to balance the security interest versus the right to freedom of expression of like the citizens of India.
Yeah, that's why, when we were talking before the show, and that's why I said it's primarily a debate between, your values versus the investment. And of course, as, Sarojit was pointing out that, of course, at a time when we're still discussing primarily what all is wrong with the internet, there are these green shoots also where, of course, a lot, positive efforts have also been done. But are those efforts enough? But I want to, talk a little more about the equality of the internet, Santosh. And I was asking Sarojit that is it even fair today in this ecosystem to expect a sense of equality from the internet? Because if you look at the internet today, it is primarily a private enterprise. So is it even practical for us to hope that private firms will put internet equality before their own profits? Because that's why I said that's the conundrum today, values versus investment.
Yes, I think equality is possible, and that's the role of the government. That's the very important role that regulators play, that we invite companies from the US, we invite companies from all over the world, whichever country they originate from, and we give them a level playing field where the rules are very clear. The red lines are clearly drawn on what is possible, what is not possible, what is against privacy, what is against national security, and so on. And that is exactly the level playing field we should strive forward.
Right. But is that an idealistic picture that we're looking at then, Santosh? Because we've seen so many conversations happen around it where we want these checks and balances to be put in place, where we want security protocols, where we want a policy change. Do you then think we're probably asking for an idealistic picture?
No, I don't think it's idealistic, because now what we are doing is we are doing exactly what China has been doing for the last 10, 15 years. They have a clear understanding that you can't operate in China if you don't follow the national security law, the censorship law, and so on and so forth. And many large internet companies have decided to not enter the Chinese market because they can't, operate a business on the internet while complying with such kind of stringent censorship norms. So if you don't go towards what you called idealistic view of the internet, the other option is a race to the bottom where every country will have its own internet, and eventually we will not have a single internet. We will have number of internets, and then that defeats the utility of the internet as a free global medium for communication.
Exactly where I started the conversation from, that are we headed towards multiple internets rather than a democratic platform, where the journey really started. Sarojit, if you heard what Santosh was pointing out, and I agree that, do you then think somewhere Indian government or India's policies have completely lost their way? Because remember, multiple governments today across geographies are still grappling, with putting a proper structure in place to ensure, one, that the internet is equitable, profits are legitimately taxed. Do you then think at this time, when these conversations are happening, do we really see an end to the internet related litigation in any of the near future, or do you think that's a distant dream then?
I think in the near future we'll see a lot more of litigation, and I think a lot more of contestation around these issues. However, I think, as again Santosh pointed out, I think the good thing that the Indian government is doing, the Indian government is engaging with all these issues. There are lots of consultations and discussions happening. The government is discussing and has brought on the floor of the parliament the data protection bill. So a lot of privacy related concerns will be taken care of by that. There is the intermediary liability guidelines. While there are still questions about some of the things there, I think the positive step is that the government is looking at these issues. Even with the ban on the Chinese apps, the national cyber security policy is in the pipeline. Similarly, the government is coming up with proposals to tax these big foreign companies. So I think while in the short term, obviously, I think it will lead to a lot more of litigation and a lot more of challenges. I think in the long term, it may actually give us a more coherent policy of how internet works in India and how the companies are supposed to behave and what laws and rules to follow.
No, of course, that's the broader picture and that's where we want to head. But, Santosh, you said something very interesting. You said India is going the China way. Then do you think it's fair to ask that are even democratic governments today equally wary of, internet freedom as any autocrat? Because that's where we're seeing most of them headed as well.
Well, I think India in the long term is moving towards the right direction. I'm still very optimistic about it. And it is not about democracies or anything. We are a large country with an emerging market with a lot of millions of internet consumers accessing internet on their smartphones for the first time. So there will be challenges. We need to strike the balance. Our personal data protection bill has been in the making for several years. So one could say that we are slightly behind the curve. We need to quicken the pace of regulatory reform. But I still see a lot of hope. And coming back to this ban on Chinese apps, one could argue that, we had a border skirmish where we lost soldiers and there was a urgent need felt to have some kind of economic retaliation, and because India's main strength is the internet market and we could inflict some pain on the economic side, India might have resorted to this ban. So that is, as a tactic, I think it might have worked. But what is the strategy behind it? In the long term, as I said earlier, this ban cannot be sustainable. We need to develop a robust policy which welcomes companies from all around the world, which makes it very clear what are the rules to abide by if you want to enter the Indian market, what is acceptable and what is unacceptable behavior.
Threats and attacks on journalists has become an unfortunate trend. What is appalling is that now the internet and social media has also become an arena where journalists are constantly abused, attacked and harassed, either by using abusive language or straight away giving death threats. While the recent death of Vikram Joshi in Ghaziabad was a grim reminder, the death of Gauri Lankesh in Bengaluru had shaken up the fraternity to the core. A senior and well-known journalist from Hyderabad, Professor K. Nageshwar, also a former MLC, has been repeatedly threatened via an unknown number over the internet for almost a fortnight now. One call distinctly said that they would see an end to him. K. Nageshwar runs a popular YouTube channel with a substantial following and expresses his views on politics and current affairs. Repeated attempts to register a case proved futile for this journalist, and it is only now that the Narayangura police station has agreed to file a complaint.
మీడియాలో వస్తున్న వార్తలు నిజమే. నాకు జూలై 25న ఒక గుర్తు తెలియని వ్యక్తి రిపీటెడ్గా ఫోన్ కాల్స్ చేస్తూ చంపుతానంటూ బెదిరించాడు. అది మొదటి కాలు 6:49 6:49 AM ఉదయం 6:49కి వచ్చింది. ఆ ఫోన్ మాత్రం నేను ఆన్సర్ చేశాను. కాల్ చేసిన వాడి కంప్లైంట్ నా మీద అనేది ఏంటంటే, నీవు యూట్యూబ్లో ఏం మాట్లాడుతున్నావు, నువ్వు ఇష్టం వచ్చినట్టు మాట్లాడుతున్నావు, యూట్యూబ్లో మాట్లాడుతున్నావు, మీడియాలో మాట్లాడుతున్నావు, నీ సంగతి చూస్తాం, నీ అంతు చూస్తామంటూ బెదిరించడం మొదలుపెట్టాడు. సో నేను జూలై 25 నాడే కంప్లైంట్ హాకాయిలో ఉదయం 11 గంటల సమయంలోనే బుక్ చేశాను. ఇప్పటికీ 12-13 రోజులైంది. కనీసమైన స్పందన పోలీస్ వ్యవస్థ నుంచి లేదు. ఇక సామాన్యుడి పరిస్థితి ఏంటి?
We are now joined by Professor Nageshwar to speak more about the matter. Professor Nageshwar, a very good evening to you from India Ahead, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good evening, Siddharth.
I hope you stay safe, sir, considering that we are also facing a pandemic and, of course, the threats that you've been receiving. Professor Nageshwar, you have been an MLC, a former MLC, but then you are very, very well known for your YouTube channel, where you express your views on politics and current affairs. Do you think it is because of that that you've been receiving this, continuous threatening calls over the internet?
Well, certainly I don't have any personal or property conflict with anyone. So, in fact, the unidentified person who abused me and hurled lethal threats against me was in fact referring to my comments on a wide range of issues, both on YouTube and also on the television channel. And this is nothing new. What was already happening was unprecedented trolling on social media. If you go back and see my YouTube channel, you will find number of people making unpleasant and very uncivilized comments also at times. But that's true with everybody, not just me. So we are living in a world and that is characterized by a culture of intolerance and physically stifling the dissent. That's the world we are living in. But the first time I received a lethal threat to kill me also. That is something which was unprecedented, at least for my experience. I've been in journalism for the last 3 decades, and I was a legislator representing the graduates of Hyderabad and adjoining districts. Well, I was the most widely seen face on Telugu television and even the national television channels. So my contestation is that, well, I have the freedom of expression. Somebody has no non-state actors or even the state has no right to stifle my freedom of expression, which is a fundamental right given to me by the Constitution of
Absolutely. India. Absolutely. And, this is felt all over, Professor Nageshwar, that, there was a time when journalists, who bring information to the public at general, we would not face such threats. But with the social media platforms, as you rightly say, these threats are now open, and particularly against women journalists, I'm sorry to say, this has become very, very sexual, and there is a whole lot of body shaming that women have to face. Now, Professor Nageshwar, I was reading the report. Apparently, you made several attempts to register a complaint, but, it came to naught. I mean, you did not succeed in it. Tell us a bit about more.
Well, I have lodged a complaint on the online platform of the Hyderabad police called Hawkeye. So, the Hawkeye, I complained on the day on which I got the threat calls. So I complained on July 25th. Well, I tried to reach on phone to the Commissioner of Police and Director General of Police. Quite unfortunately, I did not get any response for my messages. Though I am a very well-known, I don't claim to be prominent, but at least widely known person among the 2 Telugu states. And I was a legislator for 2 terms. I was an independent legislator, and I'm independent journalist also. But after 12 days, only after media exploded it and media came to the rescue and the news became viral on social media, the police contacted me today morning. I received a call from the Joint Commissioner of Police who is in charge of my residential area, and the police came to my house and received a complaint. I hope they will really investigate and find the person. Well, I don't see this as an aberration or a single incident. Yeah, please.
Yes, but Professor Nageshwar, it is so sad that, it takes something to go viral for the police to take cognizance of a matter. And this despite the fact, like you say, that you are well known, as a journalist, and you're also known in both the Telugu speaking states, but it still took you so much of an effort. My next question to you, Professor Nageshwar, I know that you may perhaps not want to talk about it, but do you think there is a particular political party, the workers, not leaders? These are always, stormtroopers, the foot soldiers. Do you think it is one political party that is specifically targeting you, Professor Nageshwar?
Well, I really can't validate that precisely because the person who threatened me on mobile phone, the content of that call also cannot exactly pinpoint because people obviously camouflage. People hide their identity because that's a call on internet. So that itself shows that the person doesn't want to be identified. I just wanted to briefly end with what eminent Telugu poet Dr. C. Narayan Reddy said, Rastu Rastu Potanu Sira Inke Varaku. I will continue to write till ink dries up in my pen. So the ink will never dry up in my pen. Voice will never go off my throat. I will continue to voice the concerns of the people. Well, nobody can stop me. Nobody can stifle me.
Absolutely. No one can stop you, and thank you so much. You stay safe and, keep writing and keep telling us about whatever is going on around the world. Thank you so much, Professor K. Nageshwar, for speaking with India Ahead. We take you through a detailed snapshot to understand where does the South stand in its fight against COVID. The sharp spike seen in the last 1 week, however, does not look very encouraging. But then, at India Ahead, we only focus on facts and do not ever alarm you by giving you biased opinions. Let's go across to my colleague Samiksha Srivastav to understand where the South stands so far as COVID is concerned.
For that, Sudha, let's pull up the map graphics plate up. So here it is. Let's start with Tamil Nadu first, which has the highest number of cases. But the picture in Tamil Nadu really does not look as grim compared to other southern states, just because of the fact that the number of active cases in Tamil Nadu is considerably low compared to other southern states. The active cases in Tamil Nadu stand above 53,000. However, the recovery rate is also quite high. In fact, it's the highest in the country at 79%. So the picture here looks somewhat better compared to other states. Let's look at Andhra Pradesh now, where the active cases is above 82,000 mark, which is of course the second highest in the country, just after Maharashtra. So the picture in Andhra Pradesh as far as the COVID situation is concerned is quite grim, and the total cases of course are nearing the 2 lakh mark, and the recovery rate, however, is also quite low. It's above 57%, but still quite low compared to the national average, which is around 66%. Let's look at Karnataka then, which has the third highest active cases in the country. The recovery rate stands at 50%. Of course, there is somewhat an improvement. The last time we told our audience, it was about 42%, so there is an improvement in recovery rate in Karnataka. The active cases, however, stand at 75,000. As I just mentioned, it's the third highest active cases in the country in Karnataka. Let's look at Telangana then, how the picture looks in Telangana, where the recovery rate is 71%, again better than the national average of 66%. Active cases at 20,000, and the total cases above 73,000. Also important to note here that the state reported more than 2,000 cases for the third day straight. So that is some worrying picture there. Now talking about Kerala, where the active cases presently stand above 11,000 mark, cases have reached 30,000 mark. That is a very somber figure, and the recovery rate then stands at 60%, above the national average, in fact just a little tad lower than the national average. But the active cases above 11,000 mark is a cause of concern. So that's the picture, what it looks like in the southern states, Sudha. But before I hand over to you, let me just say that when we open our bulletin on Monday morning, hope that there is some positive news and the recovery rate improves significantly, and these southern states which are seeing a sharp surge, there is a marginal dip in the active cases as well. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Samiksha. And like she said, and so well said, I think everybody only is hoping for hope. That 4-letter word like love, which we all need to tide over this COVID. And what Samiksha showed you in graphics, let me just elaborate a little on that, and let's start with Telangana first, where the trend in the past few days actually looks grim. The state reported more than 2,000 cases for the third day in a row, taking the tally above 75,000, while the number of active cases stand above 21,000. The recovery rate is above 70%. What has actually created a glut is that several hospitals across the districts are now fully packed. The MGM hospital in Warangal, which is a designated COVID facility, has 255 beds and all are occupied. A similar situation also persists in district hospital Bhadradari and Kottugudam and the GH Suryapet hospital. The government, however, maintains that there are enough COVID healthcare centers to treat patients like governments usually say, but we got to really deep dive, and on Hyderabad Ahead, we do this every day. Now, let's move to Andhra Pradesh, where the situation is also deeply worrisome. The tally in Andhra is nearing the 2 lakh mark after more than 10,000 cases were reported in the last 24 hours. Also, the state recorded a single-day highest number of 77 deaths. The government has maintained that the increase in cases is due to more number of tests being conducted. With the surge in cases in Andhra Pradesh over the past 2 weeks, it has now surpassed Delhi as the third most affected region in India. You know, if you look at the graph, Maharashtra is on top. Now Andhra has left Delhi way behind and climbed up. I mean, look at the way the situation has really deteriorated. However, despite the spurt in number of deaths, the recovery rate has improved, which is some good news, to 57% from 52%, and the mortality rate has also dipped to 0.8 from 1.3%. In Tamil Nadu, you know, more than 5,600 COVID cases were reported in the last one day. The state's tally has now risen to 2,79,000, while the number of active cases in the state stands at 53,486 to be absolutely precise. 112 new deaths were reported, which is the highest number of fatalities that the state has logged in a single day till date. So, you know, that is one statistic which we all have to closely watch, and I'm sure that the government is also watching. But there has been a significant improvement in the recovery rate, which now stands at 79%. As you all know, Governor Bhanwarilal Purohit, who had tested positive for COVID, continues to be asymptomatic and has kept himself in isolation at home. Now, if you move to Karnataka, it has witnessed the highest single day spike of over 6,800 fresh cases. The tally in the state has crossed the 1,50,000 mark. Bengaluru continues to drive the caseloads in the state with more than 2,500 cases reported in the last 24 hours. The recovery rate has crossed 50% benchmark, while 20.75 more people have recovered in Bengaluru last week. Also, according to a latest study, Karnataka ranks high on measures of COVID data transparency across Indian states. So, that is the snapshot. And on Monday, when we meet you again on Hyderabad Ahead, I am sure we will have some better news. Moving on, like we say every day, India Ahead is a channel where we focus only on facts and scientific premises to any question. We have been constantly bringing you alternative theories regarding COVID. Does the virus impact all family members in a home where one may be suffering from it? Not necessarily. And you saw that show on this channel where Professor Mavlankar came and said that that is really not mandatory. Or are younger women more susceptible to, to this disease in Telangana? So we keep talking about what are the different theories around this dreaded COVID. Now, in the latest mathematical projection by a 4-member team from the Center for Healthcare Management, Administrative Staff College of India, COVID numbers in Telangana have been pegged between 2,84,000 to 9,66,000 by the 30th of September. This one, many doctors and scientists have said that the virus may reach a peak now, that is in August, and later abate as we reach the end of September. However, if the mathematical projection will be true, it will be a 3-fold increase from the present figures. The mathematical projections have been made using 2 basic scenarios. A very conservative estimate according to which the caseload of the state will be, listen to this very carefully, 2.84 lakh, and the daily death toll will be 1818. In the second alternative scenario, which is actually the worst case scenario, there will be an exponential progression with 9.66 lakh caseload at 83, that is 83 deaths per day. The day for the 3-fold increase has been chosen keeping in mind a general assumption that the country is likely to see a peak between September and November. Kaun hu main? All of us are forever trying to seek an answer for this question, but somehow get lost in the loud noises around us. Kaun, ke, yaru, yavaru. In many languages, it means the same thing. Who are we? Even as I try to seek an answer to that, I'm sure who I am not. Not fixated with news which becomes gossip in a few hours. Certainly not someone who only trains her eyes on the big metros. And certainly not someone who ignores you just because you speak English in a particular fashion. English, Telugu, Hindi, Tamil and Bengali. I am all of that. I read you. The time is now. Let's take India ahead.
You're watching India Ahead.
India's internet freedom. Now, the internet today is fragmented like it never was. Each country has framed its own rules to govern the cyberspace, some of which have become huge hurdles today. Today, there is a new need for global internet governance and a new system. A system that has common standards and promoters a safe and a diverse internet. We at India Ahead today kickstart a new series on India's internet freedom. Democracy, legalities, the future. I'm Ridhima Bhatnagar. In our first episode today, we ask, is the democracy of the internet under threat? Which way are we headed?
A wise man once said, "The internet is the oxygen we need in life today." But the internet is now fragmented like it never was. Each country has framed its own rules to govern cyberspace, some of which are hurdles today. Today, there's a need for global internet governance system, a system that has common standards and promotes a safe and diverse internet. The democracy of internet is under threat. Democracies need to sit down together and develop a common set of protocols, principles, rules that they will follow when it comes to internet governance and amend formulate laws. Let's look at what has recently happened with the ban on 59 apps. Is the Trump administration's attack on TikTok only motivated by the president's America First instincts? Even if it is, it raises an important question, a question of principles. Can cutting off market access to a foreign digital company be a legitimate act based on principle and policy preferences? Or is it just an act of protectionism? BAT companies or Baidu, Alibaba and Tencent are the holy trinity when it comes to soft power projects such as AI, IoT and fintech. 50% of the top downloads in India in 2018 were TikTok, UC Browser, ShareIt. All these apps had Chinese investments. Now that India has banned the mainstays of the Chinese app, who will make up the investment shortfall in the digital economy? Will American companies be incentivized to invest more at this time? What will this mean for security concerns linked to American apps like Facebook? For example, with what happened with Cambridge Analytica. The question now is, where are we headed? How do we create a rules-based system to balance security and investments?
To take this discussion forward, I have with me two very special guests joining me on the broadcast. I have Sarabjit Singh, who's the Director of Center for Communication Governance, NLU Delhi, and also Santosh Pai, Partner, Link Legal. Gentlemen, good evening. Good to have you on India Ahead. And let's get straight to it then. This is our first episode where we kickstart many conversations around India's internet freedom. Sarabjit, I want to begin with you. I want to understand what is your take on it. Today we're talking about the democracy of the internet. If you look at the internet freedom, it's been touted as a fundamental right in the 21st century. But of course, it's not that simple, right? Today, there's so many questions around it. Is internet freedom a myth as governments, more and more governments today become increasingly inward-looking? Where do you stand on this?
Thanks, Bhupen. And I think, as you said, the question is internet freedom under threat? My one-word answer would be that internet freedom is under threat, especially if we look, obviously, globally, whatever you have said. But even within India, there is greater censorship that's happening. There are more and more surveillance projects that the government is bringing up. There are questions of regulation of even video on demand services like Netflix or Hotstar. So I think what we have seen in the past few years is the government being more and more paternalistic. There's a proposal to regulate the intermediaries even more, and not just the Chinese thing, right? So one option is what they did with the 59 apps that happened a few weeks ago. There are questions of legality and stuff. So my simple answer to start with would be, I think internet freedom is under threat, and the internet we'll see more and more splinternet rather than one common global internet.
Yeah. Santosh, I want to take the same question to you for opening comments. Where do you stand? What do you feel about the democracy of the internet, a concept that many seem to have completely forgotten because it seems like an alien idea. Today, it's being attacked from various sides, domestic as well as on the international level. Democracy of the internet under threat today?
Well, India as the largest democracy should actually uphold the highest standards, and notions such as a ban of any particular app because it belongs to a particular country or is owned by certain people is certainly not the highest standard. Internet is often associated with freedom of expression, and that same freedom has brought a lot of benefits to people around. Has brought a lot of benefits around the world. So India, I think, should always constantly strive to uphold those principles without compromising in any manner on security of the country or sovereignty, as were the grounds mentioned in this recent ban. So whatever those concerns are, a proper regulatory framework must be framed, must be implemented. We were moving in that direction. A healthy debate was emerging. In fact, a lot of US companies were engaged in that debate with Indian regulators on the intermediary guidelines. While we haven't seen the latest implementation of the revised set of intermediary guidelines, we suddenly got this ban. So in the long term, I think these bans are not sustainable.
Yeah. I want to take on from what Santosh was saying, Sarabjit. And of course, the idea was for everybody to have their set of opinions. The idea was for it to be a freedom platform that generates freedom. But we're far from it. I mean, look at the conversations that we're having around the internet today. Do you then think more than the democracy, the idea of having a sense of equality about internet has completely been taken away from us? I mean, what do you feel? Would you feel that the internet today has democratized the world, or do you think it has now further actually gone down the opposite, which is it has widened the rift between the privileged and the less fortunate, and that is why probably we're discussing the idea around the democracy being under a threat today?
I think that is something that seems to be happening. And if we see the projection that internet has taken, whereas in 2011 with the Arab Spring and all, we were saying that it will democratize the entire world, bring democracy to a lot of dictatorships. Two conversations now where we are saying internet is used for hate speech to interfere in elections. So in that sense, I think the slide of internet and the negativity, especially around social media, the kind of conversation that we have on social media is, I think, getting worse. However, as Santosh, I think, said, we should still remember that internet in that sense has still democratized and given a voice to a large number of people who without internet would have had no choice. Even today, I think we see a lot of campaigns happening online, a lot of transparency happening. That is happening only because we have internet, and we have relatively free and open internet compared to a lot of other countries. And that's why I think this ban on 59 apps, while there are legitimate security concerns, I think there are other ways to deal with it, right? If we look at the question of TikTok and if we look at stories, TikTok really provided, in that sense, a lot of benefits, a lot of employment to a lot of content creators. So I think, as Santosh mentioned, I think we need to find solutions to balance the security interest versus the right to freedom of expression of the citizens of India.
Yeah, that's why, when we were talking before the show, and that's why I said it's primarily a debate between, your values versus the investment. And of course, as, Sarojit was pointing out, that of course, at a time when we're still discussing primarily what all is wrong with the internet, there are these green shoots also where, of course, a lot, positive efforts have also been done. But are those efforts enough? But I want to, talk a little more about the equality of the internet, Santosh. And I was asking Sarojit that is it even fair today in this ecosystem to expect a sense of equality from the internet? Because if you look at the internet today, it is primarily a private enterprise. So is it even practical for us to hope that private firms will put internet equality before their own profits? Because that's why I said that's the conundrum today, values versus investment.
Yes, I think equality is possible, and that's the role of the government. That's the very important role that regulators play, that we invite companies from the US, we invite companies from all over the world, whichever country they originate from, and we give them a level playing field where the rules are very clear. The red lines are clearly drawn on what is possible, what is not possible, what is against privacy, what is against national security, and so on. And that is exactly the level playing field we should strive forward.
Right. But is that an idealistic picture that we're looking at then, Santosh? Because we've seen so many conversations happen around it where we want these checks and balances to be put in place, where we want security protocols, where we want a policy change. Do you then think we're probably asking for an idealistic picture?
No, I don't think it's idealistic, because now what we are doing is we are doing exactly what China has been doing for the last 10, 15 years. They have a clear understanding that you can't operate in China if you don't follow the national security law, the censorship law, and so on and so forth. And many large internet companies have decided to not enter the Chinese market because they can't, operate a business on the internet while complying with such kind of stringent censorship norms. So if you don't go towards what you called idealistic view of the internet, the other option is a race to the bottom where every country will have its own internet, and eventually we will not have a single internet. We will have number of internets, and then that defeats the utility of the internet as a free global medium for communication.
Exactly where I started the conversation from, that are we headed towards multiple internets rather than a democratic platform, where the journey really started. Sarojit, if you heard what Santosh was pointing out, and I agree that, do you then think somewhere Indian government or India's policies have completely lost their way? Because remember, multiple governments today across geographies are still grappling, with putting a proper structure in place to ensure, one, that the internet is equitable, profits are legitimately taxed. Do you then think at this time, when these conversations are happening, do we really see an end to the internet related litigation in any of the near future, or do you think that's a distant dream then?
And I think in the near future we'll see a lot more of litigation, and I think a lot more of contestation around these issues. However, I think, as again Santosh pointed out, I think the good thing that the Indian government is doing, the Indian government is engaging with all these issues. There are lots of consultations and discussions happening. The government is discussing and has brought on the floor of the parliament the data protection bill. So a lot of privacy related concerns will be taken care of by that. There is the intermediary liability guidelines. While there are still questions about some of the things there, I think the positive step is that the government is looking at these issues. Even with the ban on the Chinese apps, the national cyber security policy is in the pipeline. Similarly, the government is coming up with proposals to tax these big foreign companies. So I think while in the short term, obviously, I think it will lead to a lot more of litigation and a lot more of challenges. I think in the long term, it may actually give us a more coherent policy of how internet works in India and how the companies are supposed to behave and what laws and rules to follow.
No, of course, that's the broader picture, and that's where we want to head. But, Santosh, you said something very interesting. You said India is going the China way. Then do you think it's fair to ask that are even democratic governments today equally wary of, internet freedom as any autocrat? Because that's where we're seeing most of them headed as well.
Well, I think India in the long term is moving towards the right direction. I'm still very optimistic about it. And it is not about democracies or anything. We are a large country with a emerging market with a lot of millions of internet consumers accessing internet on their smartphones for the first time. So there will be challenges. We need to strike the balance. Our personal data protection bill has been in the making for several years. So one could say that we are slightly behind the curve. We need to quicken the pace of regulatory reform. But I still see a lot of hope. And coming back to this ban on Chinese apps, one could argue that, we had a border skirmish where we lost soldiers, and there was a urgent need felt to have some kind of economic retaliation. And because India's main strength is the internet market and we could inflict some pain on the economic side, India might have resorted to this ban. So that is, as a tactic, I think it might have worked. But what is the strategy behind it in the long term? As I said earlier, this ban cannot be sustainable. We need to develop a robust policy which welcomes companies from all around the world, which makes it very clear what are the rules to abide by if you want to enter the Indian market, what is acceptable and what is unacceptable behavior.
Because if we don't agree and find a common ground in terms of our policy, in terms of our data protection, in terms of where we are headed, then we'll be dealing with another monster, which is that will we actually see the internet becoming a tool for control? And that's where do you think the balance is very, very important, Sarvjit?
That's correct, Ridhima. And I think what we have seen in the past few years, I think because of the lack of bright line rules, clear laws and stuff, I think it's given the government more and more power to actually do as they please. So even with this entire app ban, to take an example, one of their major reasons is, they take data of the Indian consumers. While that may be a legitimate concern, there is no evidence, at least that's been proved. But the government itself is sitting on a data protection bill. For the past 3 years, the process started when the famous Supreme Court judgment on privacy came. The government still hasn't done anything. So I think we need both, right? We need the companies to obviously abide by Indian laws and Indian rules, but we also want the government, I think, to lay down clear rules which protect the fundamental rights of Indian citizens. We should not forget that because China is a closed market, India is in that sense the biggest market today which is available to all the Indian internet companies in terms of the number of internet users. We have even more internet users than the United States, and obviously a lot more are supposed to come online in India in the next half a decade. So I think we need a lot more clear rules which protect the citizens' rights